thing that distinguishes them from every other creature, from the fireman and the emergency medical technician and the other people out there on the battlefield holding our society together, is the fact that A, they march towards the sound of the guns, and then B, they return fire. Every other creature on the face of the earth flees from the sound of the guns, and the warrior advances to the sound of the guns. That ability to advance towards interpersonal human aggression, number one, and then number two, to thrive and function in that realm of interpersonal human aggression, is the thing that distinguishes you as a warrior. And the degree to which you can understand that realm, master that realm, and function in that realm is the degree to which you will, number one, survive, and number two, accomplish your mission. The thing you've got to realize is that after thermonuclear holocaust, this explosion of violent crime represents the single greatest threat to the existence of our civilization. If things get bad enough, people will always sacrifice liberty for security. They will always happily vote for someone who promises to make the trains run on time. And one thing that every dictatorship can always do is bring down the crime rate. All they have to do is systematically take your liberty away from you, and they will be able to bring down the crime rate. The individuals who are willing to advance toward the sound of the guns are absolutely, desperately needed in our time of need. The warrior never lets down the guard. The warrior is constantly ready, and in the process of constantly being ready, the warrior reduces the probability that bad things are going to happen. We have to study aggression and posturing. It's like a magic trick. If you see somebody do a magic trick, you're wowed by it. If you understand how the trick is done, it suddenly is not so potent. It's the same way with aggression. You've got to study it, you have to experience it, and then when it actually happens, it no longer astounds you. You're able to deal with it calmly. We want to develop warrior spirit to face human aggression. There are two types of aggression out there. There is defensive aggression. Its purpose is to escape. You see that all around you. You see suspects who are constantly pinging around, looking in opposite directions, looking around, trying to find a way to escape. And then there is predatory aggression. That is the real danger. The predatory aggression's goal is not to escape, it is to conquer. And you'll see individuals who are sitting there perfectly calm. There's no nonverbal cues. And then all of a sudden, bam, they're in action, and action is faster than reaction. You've got to monitor the suspect. Normal levels of arousal represents a problem, defensive aggression. No arousal may represent a very big problem, predatory aggression. But understand this. Your opponent has a home court advantage. You go into his lair, you go into his house, you go into his bar, you touch his kids, you go where they are. In nature, the predator in his lair almost never loses. It combines the predatory and the defensive aggression. That's why the lion tamer is in the cage before the lions come in. If you did it the other way around, you'd be paying to see an entirely different kind of show. Somebody was telling me about a criminal that he was interviewing. And essentially what the criminal said was, he said, you know the difference between the cops and the crooks? I said, the cops, it's an 8-hour-a-day job. For us, it's a 24-hour-a-day job. It's a way of life. Who's going to win? The warrior can meet the predator and survive. The goal becomes to learn to fight with intent and will, not fear and panic. Ultimately, the goal is to nurture the warrior spirit, to be transformed into a warrior. Now, if they took you as a warrior and they did not give you a gun, would that make our civilization safer? No. If we gave you that instrument and didn't teach you how to hit things with it, would that make you safer? Of course not. Obviously, if you have the gun, you've got to be able to hit the desired target with the gun. Now, if we gave you the gun and taught you how to hit things with it, and then did not psychologically prepare you to pull the trigger, would that make us safer? Well, no. Because three things have to happen. Number one, you have to have the gun. Number two, you have to be able to use the gun. Number three, you have to be willing to use the gun. We're going to explore the dynamics of another human being looking at you across the sights and you pulling the trigger and snuffing their life out. We don't want to kill. That's not the goal. We want to prevent using deadly force. And yet, when it comes down to that critical moment, The thing that distinguishes you from the rest of our society is that you are licensed, required by our society at the critical moment, under the right circumstances, to take a human life. We don't want to kill. That's not the goal. We want to deter. And if we do not address that, then we have failed to prepare ourselves for the mission that lies before us and the task that our civilization has given to us. So we're going to take a look at that. We're going to take a look at this process of using deadly force. And most importantly, we're going to take a look at the process of surviving afterwards. If you are to live and function in combat, you must understand all the dynamics that will happen in that realm. And so let's take a look at the realities of combat.
What is that moment really like when you take a human life? You are facing a deadly threat right now. Your life is on the line. Can you act decisively and with self-confidence? Even if your actions ultimately mean that you take a human life, do you believe in yourself so deeply that you know you'll do the right thing? You want the answers to be yes, but to be absolutely certain at the moment of truth, you may need to address certain ethical and religious issues ahead of time. To survive, to really survive, you will need a commitment to defend yourself that is ironclad. Dave Grossman continues.
When you actually kill somebody and the mystery of life and death flickers in front of your eyes, there is nobody, to the best of my knowledge, who has ever done it, who hasn't at one level or another said, you know, I'm going to have to face my maker for what I just did. I'm going to have to face that man's maker for what happened. When a living, breathing human being suddenly turns into a lump of flesh, the reality hits you right between the eyes, those spiritual aspects become real. All your life you've been told, don't kill anybody, don't kill anybody. The ultimate no-no is people who kill people. And then one day, they put a weapon in your hand and they send you off. Somewhere along the line, you do what needs to be done, and now you've got in your mind what we call cognitive dissonance. You have two conflicting messages. One message that says it's bad to kill people. There's another message that says kill those people. And if you don't resolve that issue, it can cause you significant complications. Most of us are products of the Judeo-Christian ethos, and throughout 5,000 years, it has supported the warrior. It has never given anything but honor and recognition to the warrior. About 400 years ago, the King James translation of the Bible was written, and they translated the sixth commandment, thou shalt not kill. And what happened was this. There's this tiny, tiny fraction of a percent of the Judeo-Christian ethos made that their mantra. Now, every major modern translation, with one exception, and all of the Jewish translations of the original Hebrew, translates the sixth commandment, you shall not murder. That's the intent. The guys that translated the King James Version of the Bible never imagined that thou shalt not kill should be taken so incredibly out of context as it has by a tiny minority. Well, the thing you got to ask yourself is, are all of the rabbis, priests, ministers, pastors over these last 200 years of American history who sent their young men off to war, were they all hypocrites? Or might there be something more to it? In Samuel 18:7, it talks about Saul has killed his thousands, but David has killed his tens of thousands. And in Chronicles 18:6, it says that the Lord gave victory to David, that the Lord loved David. It wasn't until he murdered Uriah, in Samuel chapter 11, we see David murdering Uriah to get at Bathsheba, that he gets himself in trouble. Can you understand the difference between killing 10,000 men in lawful combat and murdering one man to get at his wife? Well, if you can, maybe God can too. In Proverbs 6:17, it lists the things that God hates. Towards the top of the list is shedders of innocent blood. Those who fight to preserve innocent lives have never received anything but the highest honor. People say, well, that's the Old Testament. We're under the New Testament. Okay. And in Matthew 8:10, when the centurion came up to Jesus, he didn't say, stop all this killing business. He said, no greater faith have I found, no, not in all of Judah. We don't see him condemning warriors. Indeed, in Luke 22:36, he says, now I tell you, sell your cloak if you must and buy a sword. Not exactly the words of a pacifist. In Matthew 26:52, Peter whips out his sword to protect Jesus. And Jesus says, no, put it away. If you raise the sword against the lawful authority, you shall die by the sword administered by the lawful authority.